All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the script on how you think about building your savings. Because look, if you've ever felt like your bank account just isn't growing as fast as you'd like, or, you get to the end of the month and literally wonder, where on earth did all my hard-earned cash actually go? Well, first of all, you're definitely not alone. I mean, we've all been there, right? We have the best intentions, we set these big goals, and yet, the numbers just don't seem to budge.
And when that happens, what do? We usually just blame ourselves. You probably tell yourself, man, I just need to try harder. I need to be way more disciplined, stop buying so much coffee, get some stronger willpower. But listen to me. Here's the honest truth. You don't need more discipline. Seriously. In fact, relying on willpower and discipline to build your wealth, that's exactly what is holding you back. It's a completely exhausting and honestly and ultimately losing battle.
Which brings us to Section 1, the myth of discipline and why willpower is losing.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 4x savings result, where we'll look at some real-world proof.
To really prove this point, let's look at a massive real-world field test run by behavioral economist Richard Thaler and Shlomo Ben-Artzi. It's their famous Save More Tomorrow program. And just look at the sheer magnitude of the change they pulled off here, without ever asking employees to sacrifice their current lifestyle, by the way. Over roughly 40 months, these participants' savings rates shot up from a pretty meager 3.5% to an absolutely incredible 13.6% of their income. I mean, guys, that's nearly a quadruple increase. And here's the real kicker. They didn't do this because they suddenly became these ultra-disciplined people with ironclad willpower. Nope. They hit a 4x increase simply because they automated just one single aspect of their financial lives. They basically just removed themselves from the decision entirely.
And the best part? It wasn't just some short-term burst of motivation that fizzled out. Look at this number, 78%. A staggering 78% of the people in this study were actually still enrolled in the program 4 pay raises later. They didn't quit when life got chaotic, they didn't back out. Why? Well, because the system was doing all the heavy lifting for them. They literally set it up once, and the whole architecture of the program just kept them right on track for years.
So let's break down Section 3. Why this actually works, and dig into the actual mechanism behind it. So what exactly is happening in our brains here? What's the secret sauce that's helped over 15 million Americans use this to boost their savings? It all boils down to the brilliance of these 3 steps. Step 1, commit now to save more later. This is huge because it totally bypasses what psychologists call present bias. You're not fighting yourself in the heat of the moment when you really want to buy something. Instead, you make the decision just once, in advance, when you're feeling totally rational. Step 2, tie those increases to future raises. This is just absolute genius, honestly. Since your take-home pay never actually drops, you completely avoid loss aversion. You don't feel a pay cut because the money gets whisked away into savings before it even hits your checking account. And finally, step 3, stay in unless you actively opt out. Instead of having to hype yourself up to proactively save money every single month, the default setup uses your own inertia in your favor. Yes, being lazy can actually help you build wealth.
And all of this taps directly into a deeply ingrained behavioral finance concept known as mental accounting. Basically, it's our natural tendency to sort of mentally compartmentalize our money into very specific purpose buckets. Your brain genuinely treats money totally differently depending on which account it's sitting in. If it's just sitting there and checking, well, that's for spending. But if it's over in a separate, dedicated account, suddenly it feels untouchable. And that's not a flaw in your thinking at all. It's actually a super powerful psychological lever. Automation just pulls that lever for you. It effortlessly creates those buckets so you can build really consistent saving habits, completely skipping the mental fatigue of making manual decisions every day.
All right, Section 4, manual versus automated savings. Let's dive straight into the modern data.
If we look at a really massive 2022 data analysis of modern digital wallets, we can clearly compare automatic transfers on payday against manual methods and roundups. So a lot of folks try to keep all their cash pooled in one giant checking account, right? And they try to manage it all with some overly complicated spreadsheet, crossing their fingers that they'll manually move the leftover money at the end of the month. Or maybe they rely on those app features that just round up your spare change when you buy a coffee. But here's what the data actually shows. Deliberately setting up separate accounts with scheduled automatic transfers that hit exactly on payday, it absolutely crushes those manual methods every single time.
And this right here perfectly illustrates that data showdown. 3.5 times. In that 2022 analysis, people using automatic transfers were between 1.5 and up to 3.5 times more likely to actually hit those big savings milestones, like $500 or $1,000 within a single year.
We're not talking about some tiny marginal edge here. Setting up those automatic payday transfers makes you substantially more likely to actually hit your goals. So if you really want to see your balance grow, this is exactly why we need to set up separate accounts instead of constantly wrestling with a spreadsheet.
I really love the sentiment behind this quote from a finance professor. Think for a second about how you feel when you manually check your bank account. For a lot of us, it induces a bit of anxiety, right? So we just sort of avoid doing it. But once your savings are fully automated, checking on your financial progress becomes just as easy and habitual as scrolling through your phone. It completely stops being this dreadful chore. Because you know the system is perfectly doing its thing in the background, checking in actually becomes this really rewarding, totally stress-free experience.
And that brings us to Section 5, the honest reality, because we do need to quickly discuss one caveat.
In the spirit of total transparency, it is definitely worth noting that some academic reviews of that original Save More Tomorrow study pointed out a bit of self-selection bias, because, participants did have to actively opt in the first place. So no, this isn't magic. Setting up an automatic transfer isn't going to miraculously fix every single complex financial hurdle you've got going on. But what it does do is incredibly practical. It simply removes you from making a manual decision that, let's be honest, you are probably going to make badly anyway when life gets super busy, when you're exhausted after work, or when some flashy sale catches your eye. It literally takes human error and daily decision fatigue completely out of the equation.
Which brings us to our final question for you to ponder today. What financial decision can you remove yourself from right now? I really want to challenge you on this. Stop waiting around until you magically feel more disciplined or somehow better with money. Just stop fighting yourself. Take 15 minutes today, log into your bank, set up just one automatic transfer on your payday to a totally separate account, and let inertia build your wealth for you. So, what are you going to automate first?